Hi friends, welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're gonna build this simple QR code generator. I'm just briefly gonna show you how it works, and then let's go into building it using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So first you put the link. So I'm gonna try to put this is my channel link. Make sure you subscribe if you've not yet. So I'll just paste the link over here, and then you can choose the size of your QR code. We have created here 4 different sizes, so I'm just going to choose this. And then the colors, if you want to, you can select a color that you want, or you can just leave it as default. This is optional, and then you can just click this button, generate QR code, and here you can see the QR code is generated. And once it's generated, you can scan it. As you can see, as I hover through it, you can see it takes us to that link, and then you can choose to also download the QR code, and as you can see, it's been downloaded. Or you can choose to clear the QR code. So this is just simple, and we're going to build this using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Without further ado, let's just go right into it. So I'm going to create a new folder. So I'll go to my desktop. I create a folder. I'm going to call it QR code generator. So now I'm going to open this folder in VS Code. So I'll just right click and I'll say open with code. So now that our VS Code is open, we're going to create 2 files. I'm going to name it index.html. I'm gonna create another file, and I'm gonna name it style.css, and then I'm gonna create another file that we're gonna name script.js. So this is where our JavaScript files will go. So we're gonna start with index.html. So first, let's create the HTML structure. You type exclamation mark and press enter, and we're gonna give it a title of QR code generator. So just below the title, let us link our CSS. So you can see our style.css is linked, and then below the body, let us link our script, which is script.js. So now let's build this side by side. I'm just gonna do a browser preview over here. File looks like on the side, and let me just collapse this. Alright, so now let's start building. So in the body, we're going to create a class called container. We shall just say div and give it a class container. And inside the container, we're going to create a heading. Let's just say h1, and I'm going to call it QR code generator. So right below the heading, we're going to create a div class, and we're going to call it input group. And inside the input group, let's create a label, and this label is going to be text, and we're going to call it enter text or URL. So this is basically where you're going to put your URL that you want to generate the code for. So below it, I'm going to give it an input, and the type is going to be text. However, we're going to give it an ID that again we're going to call text. And then we shall put a placeholder, and this placeholder, let's just do https, and let's put example.com. So this is basically where the link is going to be. So right below the div input, we're going to create another div input class. So we're going to call it input group as well. And in this particular input group, we're gonna do a label, and this label is gonna be for our QR code. So we're just gonna write here QR code. So let me just remove that. So below the QR code, we're gonna have different sizes. What we're gonna do, let's just change this to QR size, and then below the label, let's create a select, and I'm gonna give this select an ID, which is gonna be size, and inside the select tag, we're gonna create very many options. So we're gonna have option, we have the option tag over here, and the value is gonna be 150, and here we're gonna write 150 by 150. So now I'm gonna copy these options for the rest of other sizes. So I'll just highlight this, paste, and paste. So now here we're gonna change to the different size options that we want. So the second one, we're gonna change it to 200, and it's gonna be 200 by 200. Then this, we're gonna make it 250, and it's gonna be 250 by 250. Then the last size is gonna be 300, and we're gonna make it 300 by 300. So now here is our drop down. You can see we have select options of the different sizes that we wanted. Now after that, we're gonna create a button just below this input group div. I'm gonna create a button, and this button is gonna have, okay, let's give it a name, generate QR code, and I'm gonna give this button a class, and I'll call it generate. And also I'm gonna give it an on-click function, so I will say on-click, and I'm gonna give it a function generate QR. Since it's a function, we're gonna add that, we're gonna make it like that. So now you can see we have another function here. Below this button class, we are going to create a space where the QR code will be generated. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a div, and I'll give it an ID. I'm gonna give it an ID called QR code. So basically this is where the QR code is gonna be displayed. So below that, we're gonna create another button, and I'll call it download QR code. And this button, I'm gonna give it a class called download, and I'm gonna give it a function. So we're gonna say on click download QR, and then we're gonna do the last button as well, which is gonna be clear, and let's give it a class also called clear, and we're gonna give it a function as well. We're gonna say on click clear QR, and that is it. So now you can see this is all we have, and we have our script.js that has been linked. And one more thing, we have to go. So now this is it for the HTML. Now let us go ahead and style our form. As you can see, this is how it looks at the moment. So to do that, I'm just gonna go into styles.css. So let's style the entire page. We're gonna say margin, let's give it 0, let's give it padding 0, let's give it box sizing border box, and let's give it font family. We're gonna say Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. So next, let's style the body, the entire body. So we're gonna give it height of 100 vertical height. We're gonna give it a display flex, and we're gonna give it a line item. Let's put it in the center, and then we're gonna justify content also to the center, and then we shall give it a background. So we're gonna give it linear gradient. Let's put in some, let's say 135 degrees, comma, and then I'm gonna give it a color. It's gonna be #4255A9. You can choose a color of your choice. The next color is gonna be 498B96. That's what we have now. Next, let us style the container. The container is a class, so we're gonna start with the dot container, and we're gonna give it a background of white, or you can just use FF if you want. And we're gonna give it a padding of 30 pixels. We're gonna give it border radius, let's give it 12 pixels, and also let's give it a width, and we give it 380 pixels. Then let's give it a box shadow. We're gonna do 0, 15 pixels, 35 pixels. RGBA, let's give it a color. So we're gonna do 0 here in red. We're gonna put 0, green we're gonna put 0, blue we're gonna put 0 as well, and then alpha, let's give it 0.25, and there we go. So I'm just gonna do text align center. So that is all for our container. Now let us style our H1. H1 is a tag. It's basically the one carrying the heading. So I'm gonna give it margin bottom. I'm gonna give it 20 pixels. Then I'm gonna give it a color 333. That's like grayish. That is all for our H1. Then let us style our input group, which is a class. So I'm just gonna do input group, and I'm gonna give it a margin bottom as well. Let's say it's 15 pixels, and then we're gonna do text align left. So that is it for our input group. And then let us style our label. Let me just move up here. Label is a tag, so for labels, what we're gonna do, we're just gonna give it font size 14 pixels. So let us style input and also let us style select. So let's give it a width of 100% and let's give it a padding of 10 pixels. So we're gonna give it a margin top 5 pixels, border radius 6 pixels, and let's give it a border. I'm gonna just say 1 pixels solid, and let's give it a color CCC. Perfect. And we're gonna give it a font size 15 pixels. Now you can see our form is slowly taking shape. So let us style color group. We're gonna say display flex, and let's give it a gap of 10 pixels. So let us style a button. Margin top, let's give it 10 pixels. Let's give it a padding of also 10 pixels. Let's give it a width of 100%. Now you can see. And then I'm gonna give it a border, let's say none. Then let's give it border radius 6 pixels. Font size, let's give it 16. And I'm gonna do cursor, let's make it pointer, so that when we hover at this, the cursor changes to pointer. Now we are going to style each individual button. Remember, we gave each one of them a class. So let's start with the first button, which is the generate button. We're basically gonna give this one a background 667 EEA, and we're gonna give the text a color, so we should just say color white. There we go. So now we're gonna do generates hover, so that when someone hovers it, the background changes. So let's just give it background 5566D8. You can choose any color of your choice, so you can see it's just a lighter version of that same color. So let's style the remaining two buttons. So we have download. We are basically gonna just give it a background as well, and for this let's give it 28A745. Also color, let's give it white. So let us do clear. Let's give it a background DC3545, and we're also giving it a color of white. So let us style the ID QR code. This is basically where the QR code will be displayed. So we shall give it margin top 20 pixels, display flex, and we're gonna justify content center. Now that is all for our CSS for this particular project, and when I enlarge this, you can see this is what we have. Now we have our HTML, we have our CSS, and we are left with JavaScript. So before we go to the JavaScript, let's go to CDN, look for CDN.js. This is where we are going to get a free library that is going to help us work. So it is called QR code.js. As you can see, it's right here. So we have QR code.js, and you have the .min and QR code.js. So the min is the minified version, so we're just going to copy this URL. Don't forget to copy this for your QR code to work. So when we copy that, we're going to go back to our HTML, and just here, I want you guys to see, just here below, we're going to say script, and we're going to link our CDN. Now this particular one works with internet because you can see it's a HTTPS. However, you can choose to download and work with this offline by just going here on this link and then get it on GitHub and then add it to your local folder for it to work. In my case, I have internet, so I'm just going to use that. But in case you don't have internet, you're just going to go here into the GitHub repository and you're gonna get this QR code.min.js manually and add it to your file. Now, perfect. Now that we have linked that, this is what we have. Let us proceed and now write our JavaScript. So I'm gonna go into script. So let's say let QR, and let's work with a function to generate QR code. So that function which we already linked into the HTML, so we're gonna say generate QR. So we're gonna say let text equal to document dot get element by ID, which is right here, and then we're gonna get the ID which is text, as in our HTML, dot value. That's what we have. So we're gonna do the same for size and for color as well. So I'm just gonna copy. Okay, let's just write it. Let size equal document dot get element by ID, and we have size. Be careful of spelling. Let's say dot value. As I was writing this, I noticed that we skipped a step in the index. So we were supposed to have the color of the QR code just below the QR size. So what I'm gonna do, QR size is here. We were supposed to have another input group here, which is basically the QR colors. So let me just walk you through it briefly. So sorry about that. I just realized when I was in the middle of all this. Yes, so now that is it. That is the part we are missing. And you can see it's also the same class input group, but this time around it has colors, and then it has color group, and we have the ID which is dark color, and also we have another ID which is lighter color. So now this is where I realized it, but also I think we styled the color group here. Let's just make sure everything is fine before we proceed. Yes, we have this color group here, so perfect. Now back to the script, we have to do again let, now that we have added, let dark, which is our color from this form, equal to document dot get elements by ID, and we're gonna have that ID which we just added, dark color dot value, and we're gonna do the same. So I'm just gonna copy this, paste, but then we're gonna change it to light, and also we're gonna call this light color. Now I think everything is okay now. So right below this, I'm gonna say let container dot inner HTML equal to, we're just gonna put that, then we shall say if text is equal to, as which is just basically, we shall say alert, please enter text or URL. That is if it is empty. Then we say return. Now this, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna just, we made a mistake here. We first, before we write that, we're gonna say let container, because you can see it was showing container is not found, is equal to document dot get element by ID, and the ID is QR code. This is the container that contains the QR code that is going to be generated. QR code. Then we shall add that one. We shall just say container dot inner HTML. So before, we need to initialize this container first before we do that. Now back here, we need to create a new QR code. We're gonna say QR equals to new QR code container. So we're gonna add all this. We shall say text, which should also be text, size, comma, width, size, height will also correspond to size, then color dark corresponds to dark, then color light goes to light. Then we shall say correct level, QR code dot correct level dot So this is supposed to be a comma because we are creating all. Now next, let's create a function download QR. So we're gonna say let image or img equals to document dot query selector. Rather, we're gonna grab that query, which is hash QR code img. So we're gonna say if, we're gonna create an if statement, img alerts generate QR fast. This works when you're trying to download this without generating the QR. So we just, let's say return. So if I try to download, this is where this is gonna take effect. We need to first generate the QR code first before downloading it. You can see here it says please enter text or URL, please generate QR code fast. That is what we have just written, you know. So let's proceed. Let's say let's link document.create element. We're gonna say a, and we're gonna say link dot href equals to img dot source, which is basically src. And then we shall say link dot download, we shall say QR code dot png. This is the download format. Then I'll say link dot click. Now we have the last function, which is, so in this case download QR code is supposed to work. Let's work with the last function, which is clear QR. Just gonna say document dot get element by ID QR code dot inner HTML equals to, we're gonna put a string, then document dot get element by ID text dot value, which is equals to a string. So now our CSS is done. However, you have noticed that QR code is not being generated. So let's just go ahead and troubleshoot why this function is not working. So let's take a look at this. Let's troubleshoot and see what the problem is. So here we have a script, QR code.main.js. This is perfect. So we don't have this. I don't know where this came from, but it's supposed to be width and height, color light. Okay, let's see if that fixes the issue. Let's put a link here, generate. So now the QR code is generated. Download. Okay, it's downloaded. Clear has cleared. We're gonna try again. 250, generate, download. It's downloaded. And basically that is it. That is how you can create a simple QR code generator. So I'm gonna put the repository right here so that you guys can have access to the source code and you can play around with it the way you want. So it's right here in 2026 projects, and you can just go here on HTML CSS projects, and then here you can just see QR code generator. The project is just here on GitHub, so you can go to the repo and see what we just built. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in another tutorial. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel.